Hi, trauma healers. Here's something I want you to consider. Maybe it would be much easier to overcome your trauma if you reparent yourself, if you gave yourself the support that you probably never had in your early childhood or adolescence. So, a little story about myself. My dad, as you've heard, likely if you've seen any of my other videos, he had borderline personality disorder. He was severely traumatized. My grandfather was an alcoholic and a Holocaust survivor, severely traumatized my dad, hurt people. But growing up, I just felt like in some ways my dad supported me. He actually gave me good advice about working hard and applying myself at school. My dad also was very honest, had a deep sense of integrity. He wouldn't lie, and he didn't ask other people to do for him what he could do for himself. So those were positive aspects of his parenting. The negative aspects is he couldn't control his temper, and he would fly into rages, and he would say very nasty things to me, like "you're always name it, everything terrible, you're never anything good," things to that effect, and that was deeply wounding. And my mom was really kind and nice, but she was also dealing with challenges of her own, depression and some anxiety, and she would be withdrawn sometimes. And she did her best. You know, what you should understand about your parents is not to judge them, not to demonize them. Understand that they were doing the best that they could with the level of consciousness that they had at the time. And oftentimes your parents, if they realized how badly they were affecting you or damaging you psychologically, potentially, they never would have done it. But a lot of the times they just didn't realize it. And like I said, they're doing the best they can with where they're at their level of spiritual and emotional development and their level of consciousness, and frankly, their level of knowledge about these things. And unfortunately, not a lot is taught about trauma. That's one of the reasons I shoot these videos, to raise awareness about trauma so we can break these intergenerational cycles of abuse and trauma that just go from one generation to another. And we can break those cycles by raising our awareness and our understanding of how children become traumatized. So look, at the end of the day, I just feel like a lot of times, especially from my father, I just did not have emotional support. I actually had the opposite. I felt like I was emotionally battered right and left, and it caused deep feelings of insecurity, and also low self-esteem, low confidence, and then combined with abandonment issues from my early childhood, because as I've also talked about in some of my other videos, I was part of this weird social experiment where they took me away from my parents at a year old, put me in these little children's dormitories. I would wake up in the middle of the night and go running around trying to get home in the small communal farming town called a kibbutz. And they would just find me in the middle of the night, and I'd be terrified and crying. And as a young child, abandonment feels like death, because you can die if you're abandoned by your family. And I know now that I wasn't abandoned, but at the time I didn't realize that, and that caused deep subconscious wiring. So in any event, what is reparenting, and how do you reparent yourself? First, you need to talk to yourself as you would a really close friend or a hurt child. And that means if you're feeling bad, you don't beat yourself up. Instead, you console yourself. You tell yourself, it's going to be okay. You can get through this. You're loved, you're cared for. And let's say that you had negative things said to you as a child. Say the opposite to yourself now. Say to yourself, if you were told you always do everything that's bad or terrible or whatever it may be, say the opposite. Say, hey, you always have good intentions. You always mean well. Instead of saying never for anything good, again, reverse it. Say, you never intentionally hurt other people. You never abuse others, things like that. As a child, you're like a sponge. You basically have no choice about what's put into your head, and you have no choice about the way you're treated. You're completely dependent on your parents. As an adult, you do have a choice, and you can choose to provide yourself that love and support that you might feel was missing from your early childhood. Other things that you can say to yourself: you know what? I believe in you. If you just are patient and apply yourself, you can learn ways to overcome this challenge. Other things that you can say to yourself, just simple things like you got this. Go hero, go champ. I believe in you. And look, this is a practice. You can't just do positive self-talk and reparenting one time and think that you're going to overcome trauma. It's something that you got to just practice and just catch yourself when you're speaking negatively or you're not supportive of yourself. Catch yourself and just shift. Don't judge yourself. Don't be upset about it, but just say, oh, okay, that's old programming. I don't want to do this anymore. Let me shift this and do the opposite. And, at the end of the day, also, if you're not feeling well inside emotionally, you're struggling, don't try and resist or avoid those feelings, because what you're basically doing, if you do that, is you're abandoning your inner self, your inner child. Do the opposite. Sit with it. And like I said, talk to yourself nicely and kindly, and just basically to the effect that you'll never say to yourself, say to that little child, try and imagine what age you're at where you first had that feeling, and then talk to that child and say, you know what, I understand that you feel hurt, and you're justified in feeling hurt, you're justified in feeling upset. It's okay to feel scared, and I'm here with you. I'll never abandon you. I'll always be here with you. And just practice saying these things to yourself, consoling yourself, and validating your feelings. Because one of the other things that sometimes parents don't do is and many parents do this, the child's upset, the child's crying, and the parents basically is, because it makes them feel uncomfortable that the child's in emotional pain, what they try to do is quickly say, oh, that's not that bad, or don't be so sensitive. Don't do that to yourself, because that is invalidating the way you feel. Do the opposite. I understand that this is upsetting. That would hurt me too. And you'll be okay. I'm here with you until you feel better. So what I want you guys to do is make this a practice. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to just be a couple of times, then all of a sudden you'll be reparenting yourself properly and speaking to yourself positively. But over time, with practice and consistency, the metaphor I like to use is, imagine going to a gym. If you go to the gym one time and do a couple of curls, is that going to do anything? No, it's not. But if you're going to the gym consistently, 3 to 5 days a week, and you're working out anywhere from half an hour to an hour, giving your body a chance to recover, but you're consistent over time, you'll have a snowball effect, and you'll get in good shape and you'll get healthier. And it's the same thing with getting yourself into emotional shape. Over time, with practice and consistency and commitment, that internal dialogue will change. And then every time you don't feel well, instead of beating yourself up, you're actually going to feel supported. And that'll help you feel better much, much faster. And it'll help you process your emotions, because the way out is through. You'll never get out through avoiding. So please practice. Please make this commitment to yourself. Please be consistent. Until next time, love you all.